Hello, BookTube, and I've been asked, and I didn't realize that I didn't have a Best Authors video. I did my Detestable Authors video, and that has caused a bit of a ruckus. So, and I really think most people have not listened to what was said. Many have, and they understand what I was saying. Many don't, and that's just interesting. It's but anyway, hopefully this one, well, maybe, is less controversial. I have a baker's dozen, 13 authors. Again, as I've been doing them, they are in chronological order from date of birth. And I'll talk about, because these are authors that I've read, if not everything, a lot of their books, but some of them not everything. Tobias Smallet is the first one, 1721 to 1771. He was an author I really like. He's an English author, and things like Roderick Random is really great. Oh yeah. Anyway, there's lots of them, and he was a ship's surgeon, and he does some interesting stuff and very gruesome descriptions at times of things. And I thoroughly like his writing. He seems to have fallen by the wayside a little bit. There's other writers that have eclipsed him, but I think he's a very good stylist, and I enjoy him immensely. And of course, these are the best writers of all time, bar none. No, they are basically authors that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and some of them have been considered some of the best authors of all time for various reasons. But that's not why they're on my list, because as we found out with the other one, there's beloved authors that I don't really care for at this point. But as I clearly stated, that things, you do change as a reader and change through time. But these are authors, these are 13 authors that have stood the test of time, because I have read and reread many or most of their books. So this is why they're on the list. Honoré de Balzac, 1799 to 1850. I have not read everything he's done. There's his Comedy Humaine, about French sort of culture in all aspects during sort of Napoleonic, I guess, what is it, second regime, I don't, the whole period there. I've read probably, I don't know, there might be 100 books that he's written, and with short stories and everything. I've read probably 30 or maybe a little more than 30 books, and I really like them. Some I like better than others, but I really like his style of writing. But again, it is translation, so it obviously will have an effect on this. The translator will have an effect on my like or dislike of that given translation. And I know he's a biggie in a sense, but there's some people that don't like him. I think he forces some things at time, but even so, I enjoy it so much. And then we've got Alexandre Dumas, 1802 to 1870. I read him right earlier as you know, as a mid-teenager, I guess. Three Musketeers, The Man in Iron Mask, and on, The Count of Monte Cristo. And they're still great stories for me. As a stylist, I don't think he was as good a writer as Balzac, nor the following writer as well, but it's just great adventure stories, romance, with a capital R. Did I say the date? 1802 to 1870 he lived. Victor Hugo, 1802 to 1885. And I really like everything that I've read by Victor Hugo. I've read quite a few things, and there's still a lot more that I want to read. But Les Miserables, I've read several times, and I'll read several more times in my lifetime. It is an interesting book because I think it divides people. There are parts that diverge into sort of historical description of, say, the Battle of Waterloo, the history sort of the hair shirt of a nunnery, the history of the nunnery, and other things like that. That there's divergences throughout the history of the sewers in Paris, and a lot of people find this distracting. I love it. I go with the flow with it, and it's just I just love the meandering through it, and these are the passages as well. And I think other people who love Les Miserables find that this is one of the reasons why they love Les Miserables, is because of these passages. If they were taken out, it would lose so much about with the book in the story, I think. Then we move to Edgar Allan Poe, 1809 to 1849. Again, this is an author that I've not read everything. I've been rationing him. But master storyteller, everything that I have read and I reread all the time. Just marvelous. And his nonfiction is marvelous. His essays and book reviews, his poetry, just everything about Edgar Allan Poe I thoroughly enjoy. Then we move to Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870. And again, it's sort of like there's people that like him, and then people that don't like him because of his long books and a bit of meandering and going on. But again, it's very immersive, I find, and enjoyable. And I'm sort of doing a reread of him, a very slow reread, not chronological. But I read Bleak House earlier this year again, and I thoroughly enjoy it. Like the opening page, the opening paragraph or two, is just so wonderful. And I will, and I have over the years just picked it up and read that first paragraph or so. And it's just fabulous. And there's still more Dickens that I haven't read that I do want to read and reread. Emile Zola, another French writer, 1840 to 1902. See, he was more of a naturalist, and I guess Balzac was more of a realist, I think. But, they're different sort of types of writers, but I still enjoy them as well. I like the social aspect of that Emile Zola deals with, and his outrage at things. But he doesn't make it unreal, I don't think. The problems and the poverty that is, say, in Germinal. And it's just, I want to do, next year I want to do, there's a 20-volume series of a family. Rouge, I can't pronounce the name correctly, so I won't even try. But if you search it, you'll find there's 20 novels. They're not that long. I want to get them all, and I want to read them, like, not chronological when they were written, because I've read about half of them, but I haven't read them in the proper order, and I want to do that next year. Again, it's someone that I can go back and reread and find more, and dig into the depth of the writing. And all these writers, I can do this, and that's one of the reasons that they're on here. Well, the next two are sort of, well, there's three on here that sort of don't quite make that of the depth and stuff, but enjoyable. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, 1859 to 1930. Specifically the Sherlock Holmes stories are endlessly readable for me, and to reread and enjoyable. Again, there's not a lot of depth, but it's an interesting world he's created, and the characters, and they are endlessly fascinating to try to find out, and the inconsistencies that Doyle had done throughout the stories, and they're fun to pick out those things. And how many wives did Dr. Watson have? And well, it seemed like he's already he had a wife before, but now he's doesn't have a wife in all this, and referring to non cases that he hasn't dealt with, and it's like, ooh, what is that about? And endlessly fascinating, as well as his other writings. Like, even his historical romances are interesting, and I have not read enough of those. The Professor Challenger stories are very interesting. All around good writer, and again, endlessly rereading. Not so much that I'll see new things in, but I just thoroughly enjoy him, as well as the next one. P.G. Wodehouse, 1881 to 1975. He wrote 95 books, more or less. I've read probably 80 some. I think there's a few that I haven't read, but I could not say which ones. There's a lot of sameness in his writing. The plots, many times, are the same. But I can just, crawl into that world of Jeeves and Wooster, or Blandings, or on, and just be comfortable. And and there's an endless almost supply, because once you read through them all in a slow, like if you read them too much, they're a little too much. But you read through them, and then you can start over again, because you've sort of forgotten some of the plots, because a lot of the plots are the same. And it's so intriguing, his plots, that are switchbacks and, all this kind of stuff. And you get these characters that are just absolutely fabulous, with names that are fabulous, and the humor that's in it. He has the ability to make you laugh by putting quotation marks and a couple dots, and it's in the context. Like, who would have thought of that? Woodhouse, that's who. Virginia Woolf, 1882 to 1941. And I've read probably half of her novels, and I've started to reread through, and I've only got reread the first one, The Voyage Out. And again, just absolutely fabulous, writing. Sometimes the subject matter I don't really care for, but there's times where she just really, really rings the writing, and especially in The Voyage Out, when the main character, she's dying. It is just so good. And I read it last year, and then I went back to it and read that passage again twice since then. And yeah, it's just so great. And I want to reread the rest, the ones that I haven't read, and read further. And as essays, absolutely fabulous. A writer of essays. They take some work at times, yes, and that's what's great sometimes with some writers, that you have to put a little bit of work into it. It's not they're not like P.G. Wodehouse that are just easy reads. You have to put some thought in it, but the rewards from Virginia Woolf and other writers that you do that with come back manyfold. George Orwell, 1903 to 1950. He's definitely one of my favorite writers. He never used to be, but I rediscovered him about 12, 15, well, probably almost 15, yeah, a good 15 years ago. At least, yeah, 15 years. And I've reread his fiction twice, in some books 3 or 4 times. And it's variable, but I appreciate the purpose of some of them. Like, I don't think 1984 is that well crafted of a book. The writing, I think it's a bit sloppy. There's reasons for that, I think, because it was his last book. But it doesn't change, it doesn't alter the fact of it's a very important book. and he's an important writer for the 20th century. And it's where he shines is his nonfiction, like Down and Out in Paris and London, The Road to Catalonia, the Road to Wigan, no, the Road to Wigan Pier, and Homage to Catalonia. And his essays are so fabulous. It's so much. I like him so much. I've got everything he's written. Like, I've got 21 volumes of his complete works with letters, diary entries, poetry, you name it. And I've got 5 or 6, biographies that I've read. And I find them endlessly fascinating. And an important writer. And like, there's a new biography. DJ Taylor is revising, is doing a full rewrite of his biography, which will be out, I guess, sort of the first third and near the of next year, I believe, is slated. I'm looking forward to that. Now we need to move to Clifford D. Simak, 1904 to 1988. I don't know if I need to say anything more for him. He's probably my favorite science fiction author. I thoroughly love him, and I don't think I need to say I like, he's endlessly readable, or at least many of his stories are. I won't drone on too much about him. C.P. Snow, 1905 to 1980. Another English author that is just fabulous. His Strangers and Brothers series is just fabulous. It follows Lewis Eliot from sort of the early teens up until his death, around 1970 almost, I think. And his sort of rise through society, through different jobs, his personal life. And they're intertwined volumes, because one volume will have him in, like, doing things in London, say, and another volume is in Cambridge, but they'll overlap time periods where he's partially in one place or the other. And it's an intricate melding of books, and they weren't written in a chronological order of the story, so they were filled in at various times. But the best way is to read it, chronologically, of the life of Lewis Eliot. But also other books like C.P. Snow's nonfiction. He did a lecture called The Two Cultures, which is endlessly fascinating, and there's lots of reaction against that by F.R. Leavis and others. And even Aldous Huxley stuck his toe in. It's basically saying that, scientists are one thing, but they don't know literature, in a sense, and then the literature people don't really know science that well, and there's a sort of division through culture. And he's written like a biography of Wilkie Collins, which is a fun read. He's written a few other novels, like he's written a murder mystery. I think it was on a sailing ship. It's not the greatest. I think it might have been his first book, but it's a fun read. He's done essays on eminent people, scientists, physicists, just all round. I've read, I would say, everything that I could get my hands on by him, I would say. And it's another reread through of Strangers and Brothers that I want to do next year. So there is my 13 all-time greatest writers ever, period. I don't know what I'm going to call this. I don't know. I can't think of a clickbaity thing for this one other than say world's greatest authors of all time. So we'll try that. But anyway, thank you, everybody. I've been getting new subscribers, so I do appreciate that, and I appreciate all the comments that have been on The last few videos that I made. I know they're controversial subjects. That's one of the reasons why I did them. But also there's other reasons behind it. I hope to think that there's a few reasons in there that if you actually listen closely, you will see sort of different reasons, and it's not as obvious as it seems by the title of the video. We'll see you next time, BookTube. Take care.